The Genuine Article. Discussion and commentary based on articles from JACC.
Hello, I'm Tony DeMaria, the editor of JACC, with another issue of the Genuine Article, and I have the opportunity now to be talking to Dr. Michael Kuchar, who's the Director of Interventional Cardiology at Wake Forest School of Medicine, and he's recently completed a nice study to be published in JACC that compares results of PCI, percutaneous coronary intervention, in institutions with on-site surgical backup versus off-site surgical backup. Tell us a little bit about the study, Dr. Kuchar.
Thank you, Dr. DeMaria. This paper was on behalf of the National Cardiovascular Data Registry, which we thought was the best format to look at this question. We examined 8,736 patients that had off-site angioplasty done at 60 centers that had not surgical backup or were off-site angioplasty centers, compared to over 300,000 patients from 405 centers that had conventional on-site surgical backup. What we found is the primary endpoints of emergency surgery and all-cause mortality, that there was no difference between angioplasty done at an off-site center compared to an on-site center.
Well, these data certainly would suggest that the results at off-site and on-site surgical backup centers are comparable, but I know there's a number of limitations to analyses like these. Do you want to tell us about some of those?
Sure. One of the key issues, Dr. DeMaria, is that non-primary PCI or elective PCI, the case selection process is very complicated, and that cannot be captured by the database. So we're not sure why people had angioplasty at an off-site center compared to an off-site center, particularly for elective cases. Fortunately, we found that elective or non-primary PCI, the mortality and morbidity was similar again in off-site versus on-site programs.
Well, the volumes are quite a bit different. It's somewhat surprising to think that institutions with off-site surgery that are doing about 200 cases a year have the same results as institutions that are doing 600 cases a year. Did that surprise you?
It was a surprise because 72% of the sites did less than 200 angioplasties a year, and yet the outcomes were very similar. I think the emphasis, though, on this paper is not so much on volume, but on quality. The quality of the programs submitting data to the NCDR of the 60 sites, they really showed evidence that they had good logistics, good organization. They were doing 24/7 coverage for primary PCI, and this is probably the cream of the crop of all the off-site programs out there.
Yeah, I think our experience with papers we receive at JACC is that many of these institutions with off-site surgical backup are very, very closely affiliated with major institutions that do have the surgery. And in fact, the operators are the same and often in constant communication with their mother hospital.
From a national perspective, the concern is that there's probably about 250,000 off-site programs 250 off-site programs in the nation, and these are just 60 of the patients of the centers were submitting data to the NCDR. There's about 20 to 25 centers that submit data to Seaport, and then there's Spoken Hub. So there's probably about 100 programs out there that are not submitting data, and those are the programs I'm concerned about. This paper was not intended to encourage the further development of off-site centers, but to emphasize that those existing off-site centers that have shown good due process, submit data to a registry such as the NCDR, or are involved in a multi-center trial, have already exhibited the quality and organization that will assure these good outcomes.
Well, that's an excellent message for us to take away from your study with the caveats that you just described. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. DeMaria.
The Genuine Article. Discussion and commentary based on articles from JACC.